Essendon season begins on Friday night against Hawthorn. They are playing the long game at Tullamarine Marine. They've been unashamedly so since bringing Brad Scott into the club. They have curiously added a year to his contract, so 2027 is now guaranteed in this search for unity.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, the club has approached me about extending for another year to show stability that the club has been yearning for a long time. So this hasn't been something that, to be honest, has been anywhere near my thinking. Like I've been focused on what we need to do right now and what we've done over the last 2 years. And you know, if the club think that for stability and unity and a show of action, instability and unity, they want to put an extra year in my contract, then I'm open to that because I'm committed to what we're doing here as well. And I think it shows commitment to the cause right from, you know, board and CEO right down to football department, and shows the players that we've got great confidence in what we're building here.
Stability is the modern religion of footy clubs.
Yeah, it is. Can you add to this? Because I'm trying to get my head around it, and I think I see Brad as one of footy's great pragmatists. I reckon he sees it pretty much black and white. I'm not surprised that he didn't go searching for it. I'm a little surprised that the extensions come.
So in October last year, once Matt Rosa had full control over the list management in the post-Adrian Dodoro years, he penned the strategy piece. It was a 3-year piece that he and Craig Vozzo, the chief executive, agreed on, presented to the board and reset their plans. Now, the centrepiece of it is gathering A-grade talent primarily through the draft.
Yep.
And thus they stepped out of the free agency space and didn't pursue any of those who came onto market between seasons, the first of a 3-year step. So that takes in season 2027. So this feels like an alignment. Brad's contract was to the end of 2026. He is not the centrepiece of the change of strategy. So it feels very natural that if that's the course of things. The problem is because the Essendon constituency is impatient, because they've waited forever through plan after plan that hasn't come to fruition, it does push the urgency down the track. So I can't benignly accept that Essendon aren't a chance to make the 8 like a lot of people are. They're coming off 2 11-win seasons and finishing 11th. I would expect them to improve on what they've done.
Yep.
Now, that 8th can't be out of reach. We can't just accept that 8th is out of reach, but it's not about 2025 and it's not about 2026. The plan is through to 2027 and now the coach is there. I imagine that will anger some in the Essendon community who probably want things at the end of the pitchfork now, having waited for so long.
First off, the disappointment for Brad is that Matt Rosa didn't put a 5-year plan in place, if that's the case, because then they would have to extend him out to align with that. I don't really buy the alignment argument. I think 2 years is enough to make sure your footy club's aligned. And recruiting and list management's a huge important part of it. And, you know, identifying what you're going to do. They've been down one path. They've now struck on this new plan. That's fine. I think 2 years is a pretty, lengthy and chunky spell. And if Brad is as good as Brad can be, then he'll get that extension somewhere along the way. It's just funny, Gerard, over the journey, these contracts and then employment contracts and the need to extend before they come out of contract. I don't think it's the end of the world to be coaching in the last year of your contract. Now, I know that that's at odds with others. And maybe, Brad hasn't been there as long as, say, Luke Beveridge at the Western Bulldogs. But what's happening at the Western Bulldogs, to me, is a sign of a huge maturity for that footy club. Because they've arrived at the point, haven't they? They've arrived at the point where Bevo's a lauded hero of that football club forever and a day as a premiership coach. They are in a state of uncertainty at the moment in terms of how far they're able to go. So to me, and you spoke to Amit Baines today, they are comfortable in the fact that this is his last year in a contract. And I think it was put to him, the security, he said, he's got the security of a 12-month contract remaining. And in that time, one or two things will happen. It will be determined that he's coached to the maximum of his ability. We'll decide whether the extension needs to come and we'll do it, or I think it'll be a mutual decision to say, hey, you've squeezed the lemon dry here. It's been outstanding. Now, you run the risk of West Coast, or not West Coast, someone coming in over the top and putting a godfather offer, but that can happen anyway. We've seen that happen when coaches are in contract.
Do you run the risk as if you step off on the wrong foot and fall behind the ledger? Say it's 2 and 5, that it self-combusts because it's a legitimate discussion is he going to get sacked or not? And so that dynamic gets inside the walls and almost cripples the footy club. becomes a constant conversation with the players themselves. Everywhere you turn, you're being asked about it, and you never quite get the answer whether you're going to be any good this year, and see it all the way through to win your job.
Then it's incumbent upon the club to understand where they're at as a football club. And I'll give you the Brisbane Lions as the prime example. Last year, I think they were 2-5, they were not far off 2-5. They held with a coach who was said to be too old, who wasn't statistically up to speed. They held their nerve. They supported their man, and 17 weeks later, they're premiers. So know your club, know your coach, know your players, and be prepared to have a year where, righto, we'll see how you go, we'll see how we go, and be mature enough about it. And I love what the Western Bulldogs are doing. I think it's a sign of great maturity, and probably what I would have preferred that, not that it's got anything to do with me, that Port Adelaide had it done to Ken. Righto, let's just coach the year. If you coach us to a flag, well, guess what? We want to keep you. But it is at the stage now where we need a great result from you. Naming a successor, as I've said to you previously, didn't really work for me, but that doesn't matter. But I love what they're doing at the Western Bulldogs at the Kennel. Everyone knows where they're at.